to the burn. I am Ryan Van Deeber, and we are presented to you by Hot Zone Sports. The information that you need to know, built with you in mind, for the people, by the people, and with the people. Join the HZS community today. Remember, our show is wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. So if you could rate and review us, we would really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the show and hit that notification bell so you'll always know when our content drops. It really helps us out a lot. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and share it with your friends. So on today's episode, we have a very special guest, Mr. Pat Strathman. He has been a professional sports broadcaster since 2013. Pat has provided play-by-play for a variety of sports from high school level to NCAA Division II. Pat has also filled in for ESPN Plus with the Wichita State Shockers, the K-State Sports Network from Learfield, and the National Sports Network. Currently, Pat is the sports director and assistant program director at ESPN Wichita 92.3. He hosts The Pulse with Pat Strathman from 2 to 4 p.m. every weekday. Now, throughout his broadcasting career, Pat has been recognized by the Kansas Association of Broadcasters, accumulating numerous honors in various areas. The KIAAA named Pat the 2021 Sportscaster of the Year. Recently, the National Sports Media Association awarded Pat as the Kansas Sportscaster of the Year award as well. He is a graduate of the University of Kansas and has worked at radio stations in Atchison, Topeka, and Salina, which makes sense as to why he is such a die-hard KU fan, as you probably witnessed if you've ever listened to his show, which, by the way, give it a listen. You won't regret it. It is on Spotify. I checked today. It is highly entertaining, just like we are, right? Anyway, he is the current play-by-play voice for the Friends University Falcons football, men's basketball, and women's basketball games, along with the host of the Friends Football Show. So let's go ahead and allow me to introduce to you our very special guest, Mr. Pat Strathman.
Job well done. Look at you. Only thing you're missing is like standing at 6'7" from Seneca, Kansas, wearing number 50 Pat Strathman. That's the only thing you're missing there. But
You like that?
appreciate it, Ryan. That was well done. I felt like I was getting ready to go up the tunnel, like getting ready for some basketball. So
Hey, at
glad,
six
glad
foot
to be here.
seven, you can play for my team any day, man.
Hey, if you need a guy who can foul a bunch of people, like, hey, I got you. I don't know
Hey,
how much more I got in my knees or legs at age 34, but
that's
hey, I,
great.
I got you.
I might be able to pass it to you in the post. I'm not sure how much my arms will let me do it anymore.
Well, heck, the other day I was banging with someone the other day. I'm like, man, I'm just not built for this anymore. I can't bang with them anymore. It's you gotta. I can set the screens. I can get the rebounds, and if I get an occasional bucket or two, I'll take it. That's as good as I can get it nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, you have been just all over the place. Like, you have so much going in the sports industry. But let's go ahead and start with the journey. So, what inspired you to pursue a career in sports, and how did you get started in this particular field? Because it's not for everybody.
hmm It's definitely not for everyone. And my journey is definitely everyone's journey is a little bit unique when it comes to sports broadcasting and just being as a journalist, whether it's writing, whether it's TV, whether it's radio. There are so many different paths to take to get to a certain position. There's not a one size fits all situation. And for me, I didn't really aspire to be a broadcaster when I was growing up. I think when you talk to most broadcasters, they'll tell you, "Oh yeah, I remember going to bed listening to Vince Scully on my
Mm-hmm.
radio," and at that point, at age 10, I knew I wanted to be a radio broadcaster. And then there's me who goes, "Yeah, I didn't look into it until age 18." And I got fortunate to kind of get into the right group, obviously, but I did have a sports background. That was always my thing. When I was in fifth grade, fourth grade, I'm the one who is reading ESPN, and I am looking at stats, and I'm rallying off stats, and I start doing some blogs, which I don't think you can find them anymore. I hope not, because if you do, you're going to see some atrocious writing, that's for sure. I even did some video blogs when I think I was even a freshman in high school. So it was just because of the sports stats aspect. That's the one thing I love the most about it. And I remember back when I was young, fifth grade, sixth grade, wherever it might be, there were so many people that said, "Man, there's Mr. ESPN over there," because that's all I did was just look at stats. That was just the one thing I did. And then when I got to high school, I actually was looking at two different things. I was looking at journalism and I was looking at civil engineering. Now, I know what you're thinking, right brain, left brain, but that isn't mixed. And you're right, it doesn't mix. But for me, it did. I don't know why, but it did. I love the math aspect, and I actually applied to go to Kansas State, and I was also applied to go KU. Got accepted to both, and I took two independent study classes when I was a senior in high school. And by middle of the year, I told myself, whatever I enjoyed the most, that's what I'm going to choose for college. If it was writing, I was going to go to KU. If it was the math and the computer aided design side of things, I'm going to go into civil engineering. And by the time I got to the middle of my senior year is when I realized, man, I really like being around sports. I really want to be around sports. So I ended up going to KU, and I got there in the fall of 2009. I got there to be a sports writer, not to be a broadcaster, to be a sports writer, because I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. That being a sports writer would be the number one thing. And when I got there to campus, I learned pretty quickly that the University Daily Kansan, which is the student run newspaper there on campus, basically you had to wait your turn. You had to pay your dues. I wasn't going to be able to get much experience as a freshman. And I thought to myself, well, that sucks. So what else can I do? What can I do?
Right.
And there was a class, J101, with Professor Chuck Marsh. There was a person standing in front of the classroom one day, and he was talking about KGHK, the student-run radio station. And he was describing all the different things that they do. And he said, "Hey, we'll take whoever. If you're a freshman, like come be a part of it." And I said, "All right, let's go to the meeting, see what's going on." So I go to the meeting at the Kansas Student Union, and I'm in this meeting, and everyone's going around the room saying what they want to do. And it gets to me, and I say sports. And everyone stopped and kind of looked at each other. And the person who was speaking was, I believe, the news director at the time. And he goes, "Hey, this is actually for the news department." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I should not be here because I do not want to do news. That's not my thing. I don't want to do that." So I walked out of the Kansas Union thinking, well, that was a waste of my time. And then I smelled pizza in the air. I looked to my right, and there's a group of guys who are sharing a pizza, and someone I knew who was part of my student orientation. So I said, you know what? When you're a college kid, you want free food. That's what you
Yeah.
want. So I go, hey, I'm going to go get myself a slice. So I walked over. And before I can grab one, a guy with a sheet of paper walked up and he goes, "Michael Spiro, KJHK sports director." And I'm like, did I really just go from the news department to the sports department? Just stumbled into the right meeting? Like what happened? Because I did not hear from him. They were looking for news people. They weren't looking for sports people. They were looking for news people. And I just stumbled upon the right group. And the rest is history, as they say. It was such an amazing thing listening to what they said. Hey, you get a chance to call games inside Allen Fieldhouse, the mecca of college basketball. You get to go on trips. You get to go to NCAA tournaments. I just thought, dang, that sounds pretty epic.
Yeah.
And they talked about how they have sports shows all the time, sports talk shows. And I just thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna see this thing through, see what happens. And then you start by being a trainee. You start by being a board op, and then you do mock play by play. You're sitting up in the stands doing play by play for a women's basketball game with little information, and you're just calling it just to call it to get reps. And then you just kind of climb up the ladder. You go from being a producer to doing some play by play to all of a sudden being a part of a sports talk show. And well, as soon as I graduated, I thought to myself, okay, this is where I want to be. This is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
And ended up graduating from KU in 2013. Went to Atchison, a town of 10,000 people. I don't know how many people know Atchison, but uh, for me, I was recruited by Benedictine to play football there, so I'm already really familiar with Atchison. So it kind of felt like home to me, and it was close to home up in Northeast Kansas. And then after that, for 8 months, went to 5 at EWIBW in Topeka. And after doing that for 2.5 years, went to Salina for 5 plus, and now down here in Wichita since October of 2021, which is crazy to think that it's already been so long. But it's been a journey. It's been a very rewarding one and a very fun one. And man, I can go on and on and on, just going through more details about the career. But I'll stop right there for now and let you ask some more questions, I suppose. But as you can see, I like to talk for a little bit.
I
This
mean,
this is why I'm in the radio world. I can talk a little bit. So, but yeah, man, it's crazy. I think there's so many people that have dreams when they grow up. Like, hey, I want to be this at age 10. I didn't want to be in where I'm at now until I was 18,
right.
and it's crazy. I never listened to a ton of radio growing up. I know of radio broadcasters when I listened to KU games or Royals games or Chiefs games. Like I knew those people, but I didn't really want to be in this industry until honestly when I was 18 years old. And it's crazy to think now here I am at age 34, been a part of the industry for 12 years. It's crazy, but I'm super fortunate and blessed to be where I'm at for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy because every kid has dreams that they shoot for. Well, my dreams kind of crumbled when I had to go into the military, and then I got out of the military, and then I just never thought of having my own podcast and bringing on prominent guests in my area. Just it's started to take off, over the past couple of weeks, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's just sometimes you're talking to walls. You're never talking to walls because you got the 92.3 app. Hey, shameless plug there. Uh,
I'll send a check in the mail later.
okay. Well, no, but it's the reason I do these live streams is so that other sports fans can jump on and have their opinions because they can always have their opinions on the graphics that I create and whatnot. But I don't know. I just figured podcasts and live streams it's just so much better. And there's lots of men, hey, and even women. I will not discriminate. They always have opinions on their sports teams. But
Mhm.
speaking on sports, because that's where we're here, what were your favorite sports moments or memories growing up, or even up to this point?
Man, for me, because here's the thing, because you have the moments where you're there in person and you're
Mm-hmm.
doing play by play, and there's moments where you're just a fan. But I can tell you now, I'm probably the worst fan ever. And it's because when I watch games, when the Chiefs are getting bludgeoned by the Eagles,
Mm.
I'm not overreacting. I'm not yelling at my TV. I'm just sitting there going, damn, the Eagles are good. The Eagles are really freaking good. I did not expect this. Like, kudos to them. They're really good. And I remember going to a KU football game, and it was KU TCU when they had college game day there. First time in a long time. And I had the weekend off, so I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go up and do that." Before I had a child, and before all that wonderful stuff, so I went out there, and I remember watching the game unfold. And there were a couple times where there's some questionable calls, and the fans would be like, "Oh my god, come on, that was the worst call ever!" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, they got the call correct." And the guy legit looked at me and said, "Can you be a fan just once? Just be a fan." I'm like, I can't really be a fan anymore. You look at things in such a different way now. Um, but in terms of like sports moments, there's so many.
Mm-hmm.
Like one for me as a KU guy, shocking that I would go KU first, but you have to go KU first in my opinion. When I was at KGHK when I was a junior, like people today to this day will ask me, "What's your favorite moment as a play-by-play guy?" And I go, "Does college count?" And they're like, "What do you mean? Surely you didn't have anything exciting to call in college." I go, "Well, it's like when I was a junior, it was KU Mizzou in Allen Fieldhouse in 2000, would have been 2012. And I remember being selected for that game, Mizzou and KU. And KGHK, the way that you did it, one person would get play by play in one half and the other person would be color. And then you flip roles in half two.
Oh, okay.
So David Elliott, who's no longer in the industry, actually just got out of the industry. He was there in Russell for years, working for a wonderful family owned company in White Communications. David was like, "Hey, what half you want to do?" I go, "Hey, I want to do second half." Well, KU's down by 19, and I'm thinking, "Hey, dummy, you made the wrong choice. You should have done the first half." And then they have the incredible rally. They rally down 19. Thomas Robinson gets an incredible block. Allen Fieldhouse is deafening. I still to this day, I cannot I do not think anything else can replace that moment in the crowd roar. I don't think there's anything better than that. And then in overtime, they end up winning in overtime. So, and I got the overtime too for play by play. So that part was good too. So the final border war showdown with Kansas and Mizzou in 2012 is still to this day the best play by play moment I think I've ever had. Now, I've had some other incredible ones too. If you told me to break it down by city, I probably could. There's one I definitely will never forget with Kansas Wesleyan up there. NAIA football was so good up there with Matt Drinkle, who's now the head coach at Central Michigan. They ended up beating Dickinson State. They got a touchdown with 40 some seconds left, and they ended up going to the national semis. And it was the coolest moment ever to see from like a small school perspective. So, I mean, those are things that you think about first when you are a play-by-play guy. You think about the games that you were a part of and you were there, and I'll never forget those. Now, growing up, that's when you think of the one that really pains me to this day. Still hate Hakeem Warwick and the Syracuse Orange for winning that 2003 national championship against KU. That damn block in the corner with Carmelo Anthony dominating that game. I'm still a little salty about that, but that's the one I think about all the time. Of course, the '08 national championship, the Orange Bowl. I'm one of four in my family to go to Kansas, so I'm the youngest of seven in my family, so large family. But one of four to be there on campus, and I'll never forget '08 with the national championship plus the Orange Bowl to go with it, which was super cool. And I've been, for it's been awesome that I get the chance to go Super Bowls the last couple of years too, going to Super Bowl Radio Row, not the games themselves, but seeing what the Chiefs have been able to do has been incredible too. So yeah, it just kind of depends on what time frame and kind of what parameters you want to put on it. But man, this is why we get into the sports world because you think of all these memories
Yeah.
and They never go away. They just stay in your brain constantly. Like, do I remember Kansas Wesleyan knocking off Bethany in triple overtime because James Brooks hit a 32-footer at the horn? Yeah, I remember those moments. Like, those are moments I will never forget. Most recently, dude, am I going to forget Celeste Blow putting 30 points on the board in a losing effort in the American Athletic Conference Championship tournament game? No, I'm not going to forget that moment. Like, those things just stay in your brain for forever. At least I hope, until I get old and then I start losing my memory
Hmm.
and it all goes to you know what. But yeah, lots of sports moments I could definitely think of.
So were you at the KU K State game when there was the brawl and chairs were
I
being
did
thrown?
not, but that's the thing too. Silvio De Sosa grabbing a chair, and it's like, what am I watching? What am I witnessing right now? Why is some guy about to go WWE on a K State player? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. So, yeah, I remember those moments, but I wasn't there for that. I actually, you could probably give me all the credit for KU football going down the drain. When I got on campus, it was nothing but trouble. I think Turner Gill comes in his first year and he ends up losing to North Dakota State in the worst college football game I have ever seen in person. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this sucks. 6-3 final score. Like, that was painful to watch. I should get my money back, although as a student, you're not paying a whole hell of a lot anyways. But and then they beat Georgia Tech, a ranked Georgia Tech team. And you're like, hey, everything's fine. We stormed the field. This is the coolest thing in the world. So yeah, I those are moments that stay with me too. You remember the losing moments too. You remember those moments where like, that sucked. I never want to do that ever again.
Yeah,
So
like every year you play K State. EMA.
this past year, it's so funny. We actually held a watch party at Union Station with a gigantic screen, and I have a young pup on staff who is a diehard K State fan, diehard. And when KU had the ball, he's leaning over just like this the entire time. And I'm like, bro, like, in your lifetime, I know how this story is going to end. I know how it's going to end. There's going to be a dumb turnover that's going to happen. You guys are going to get the benefit of the doubt, and you guys are going to win. And he's just sitting there, just like, nope, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm like, just watch. And then, sure enough, a fumble happens. I just turn and I'm just
Happens.
like, see, like, and this is where I go back to like not being quite as big of a fan anymore, because you see what's going to happen, so you just go, all right, well, I'm just going to remove my fandom out of it and go, how did K State win that football game? How did they do it? Well, then you analyze it the next day on air or on the following Monday, so you kind of flush the fandom part out of the down the drain pretty quickly. So,
Well, it's kind of like uh, KU has basketball, K State has football, and actually KU is starting. I don't know when KU was playing K State, it was like they had 3 wins, and it was like 8 weeks into the season. Yeah, they were like, yeah, I think they were 3-5, and the broadcasters were like, "This is the best 3-5 team I've ever seen," and it's just like, yeah, it shouldn't be even close, but KU started the season off really slow.
mhm.
Daniels did not have it, and what he's coming back for another season, so we'll see. He might be 29 by the time he leaves.
It's still a mystery, and that's the thing about college athletics. There's just we don't even need to get into that right now. But the the fact that KU, like, hearing that too, when people would say, "Oh, it's the best 1-5 team or the best 2-win team," that
Yeah,
doesn't make me feel any better.
no,
Like, they are who they are, and what they are is, at the time, they were a team with a bunch of seniors, but for whatever reason there was a disconnect.
yeah,
And you can sit here and dissect what the disconnect is. You can sit here and just wonder, like, hey, the KU defense was atrocious, but everyone was so pissed at the offense that no one cared about the defense, and
yeah,
everyone wondered, hey, did he actually practice? Did he actually play? And it's like, you miss You miss a full season worth of live bullets, you're probably not going to be ready to rock and roll at the beginning. And it came a little bit later, but at that point it was just too late, and he made costly turnovers. So that's the other aspect too. Sports, it's very very painful at times, but it teaches you a lesson, and that is, hey, don't make that play. You should probably pocket it and live the fight for another day. And then the teams that they played took advantage of it. And that's when you go, hey, they took advantage of it. You can't even be mad at that. That's what good teams are supposed to do. You got to take
Yeah.
advantage of it.
Yeah. So, do you have a favorite game that you've called? I know that's like asking what is your favorite movie,
Mhm.
but it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, that Kiyu Mizzou thing in 2012, I'll never forget that. It's still to this day my favorite game. But like, there's so many of them that come to mind. Like, it's just recently for ESPN Plus, Wichita State and Oklahoma for softball. Number two team in the country in Oklahoma, a
Hmm.
team that's been a powerhouse for years, won 4 consecutive national championships. Patty Gasso's won 8 of them, being there at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Just an unstoppable force. And they played Wichita State earlier on in the year, won that game very easily. It was no problem. And here they are coming to town, and you're thinking, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, Wichita State is kind of in a funk. I don't really know. They're inexperienced. They got a couple of young pups that they're relying on. They're relying on freshman arms. They're relying on a freshman catcher, 2 freshman catchers, and they're relying on a designated player that's a true freshman. So they're young, and they're going to have their ups and downs. But no one saw they're trailing 8-0 at the end of the top of the first, and you're like, all right, well, this is what I expected Oklahoma to be really, really good, right?
Yeah.
And then Wichita State just kept chipping away and got it to where it was 14-12. And I'm like, 12 runs? Like, Wichita State gets Oklahoma. They end up with 16. They lose 19-16. But the main takeaway isn't, hey, look at Oklahoma winning the game. The main takeaway is, look what Wichita State did.
Yeah.
Oklahoma gave up 16 runs, the most that they've surrendered since 2019 when they played UCLA in the College World Series. They gave up 5 home runs in a game, which was the most since 2019 against Florida State. Like, Wichita State did that. And they scored every inning. And going into the seventh, you're like, 3-run game, hitters 2, 3, and 4 are all coming up. What's going to happen here?
Hmm.
And they ended up blinking. But that's still like the most recently, that's a game that's like, man, like, I can deal with 1916. Like, that's a slugfest. We went over 3 hours on the broadcast, but for softball, that's just unheard of.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
It's the 16-1s that get you.
Yes, it's the 16-1 in the second inning. You're like, I got another 3 innings to go before it's a run rule. Like, this sucks. This isn't going to be fun. But that's one that's just most recently that's been great. So, but I've been so fortunate to call so many games, so many. Some broadcasters keep track of them all. I don't know how they do it, because for me, I
It's,
don't
the,
even want to care to guess how many I've done.
it's those
But
articles they write.
yeah, see, that's the beautiful thing about like having a blog. At least you have a timestamp with it. When it comes
Yeah.
to all the games, they all blend in together. You just assume that they're all the same. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've been so fortunate to call games from the Division 1 level all the way down to high school. I've seen some pretty incredible games, from Salina, Topeka. Gosh, and you remember the players and the coaches and the teams. Like, there's each year there's like even back in Topeka, where you see a Rossville team that has Tucker Horak, who made some plays. Now I'm just perplexed at, like, how did he do that? How did he do it? And then he would do it again the next week, and then the following week, and you're like, where is this kid human? There's no way this kid's human. Someone check, because he's got to be a robot. So from high school all the way up to Division 1, man, there's so many games I've got an opportunity to call, and It's hard to truly say. Here's one. KUMU is one I selfishly will pick right off the bat, but yeah, I just think that every time I step on a mic, that's the beautiful thing is too. You never really know what's going to happen. You think you know, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you see one of the greatest upsets ever, or a team scored 16 runs. There's so many different things that can happen over the course of a game.
So, we hosted a regional here in
Mhm.
Wichita for March Madness, and ESPN Wichita they had a fan zone, which was pretty wild, and it's actually wildly successful. Can you talk a little bit
Both.
about the people that you met and how many people were just consistently going down there? Because we all saw the pictures and it looked pretty nuts.
Yeah. It was definitely nuts. I tell you, last week felt like every day was a Monday. It felt like we had this NCAA tournament hangover. And I know every day I'm like, what day is it? Feels like it's Tuesday. Oh, it's Friday already? Golly, like this is such a slow week after doing something like that. Yeah, we had a ton, and this is the stuff that we're trying to do at ESPN Wichita. We're trying to do these unique things to put on events and do ESPN Wichita golf tournaments and doing bracket challenges. We really are, as you talked about, like, hey, this is for the people, that type of thing. That's really what we're about as well. We're for people here in Wichita, and when this fan zone idea came about, well, when I first got going here in 2021, of course, you take a look at what's coming up and you go, oh, the NCAA tournament's coming up in 2025. All right, we got some time to prepare for it. When it got to be February 2024 is when I had my first meeting with someone in regards to the NCAA tournament. Just because I knew, like, this is a big deal, we got to start planning on it. And then it got to be about, let's see, KUK State would have been what? October would have been Halloween around
Mhm.
then. And this is where the whole team aspect comes together, because it's not just one person that's successful. It's Andrew Stuhoff is an account executive for us at ESPN Wichita, and he said, "Hey, I got these guys at Union Station who are very interested in doing some unique things. What are some things that we can do?" And it's like, well, let's take a look at KUK State. Maybe we can do a cool watch party and see what happens. All right. Well, we had to sit and wait to figure out when the kickoff time was going to be, and it ends up being late at night. It's supposed to be a little bit colder. I think it was like a 7 o'clock kickoff, maybe a little bit sooner than that, but around then. And we go, all right, let's get all this stuff together. And we were expecting, I don't know, we promoted it within 5 days. We're expecting like maybe 100 people, right? I ended up getting like 350. And I'm like, okay, so we had 350 people show up and kick it and hang out and all that stuff. That was great. Well, then as soon as that event was done, it was a, hey, let's sit down and let's talk to some of our partners and see if we can do something kick butt for the NCAA tournament. And that's when we all got together, and then we all started to plan what we were going to do for the NCAA tournament. And it's not just one person that does it. It's a collective effort. Like
Yeah.
Andrew's the one who really worked well with the depot and the kitchen, and he went through the city and did a lot of the fine work stuff. And then yeah, me coming in, who's like, hey, let's do this, let's take this and change it, and maybe we can make this a little bit bigger. And hey, let's talk to some other partners and see if they want to come on out. So let's get our wonderful sponsors out there, our partners out there, and see what they do.
Yeah.
And then we get to the week of, and it's go time, right? So you go into Selection Sunday, and no KU, no K State, no Wichita State, and I'm thinking, what is the draw going to be like? Because you got to have that again go into your favor too. You got to get
Mhm.
good fan bases on top of just having people locally. You got to have good fan bases. And when the bracket started to be unveiled, no KU there for a little bit. We get to the fourth region, and I had people text me, "Is KU going to find a way to get to Wichita?" I'm like, "There's no way. There's zero chance of that happening, guys."
Yeah.
Like I know you guys are excited about it, and you saw Louisville be selected for Lexington, Kentucky, so everyone's getting excited about it. But I'm like, there's no way, guys, because the 3 seed's going to be Texas Tech, and they're not going to have Tech and KU square off in round two. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. So just do process elimination. It ain't going to happen because they're not going to be a 6 seed. I hate to break it to you, they're going to be they're not going to be a 6 seed, and if they're going to be seven, there's not going to be a seven in our region. So that ends up happening, and we start to see everyone else fill in. All right, we know Houston's coming. SIU, Edwardsville, okay. Didn't know much about them at the time, but then of course once you see all the other teams, Drake, Mizzou, UNC Wilmington, Tech, Gonzaga, Georgia, you start to see all these teams come in, and you get so excited because Drake, Mizzou, Tech, Houston, like I'm all on board with all of that. And then
Yeah.
you find out that SIU Edwardsville's got Miles Thompson, former Hutch Sawhawk that I saw play in high school. God, I'm old. But the fact he's falling out for them, I'm like, dang. They got a Hoxie kid from UNC Wilmington who's now in the transfer portal right now, who just took a recent visit to Wichita for Wichita State, and
Yeah.
it's wild. And then you throw in Tech, and Tech travels well, so we got a great draw,
Oh
and
yeah.
we started making phone calls. You know, Andrew did a lot there when it comes to that. But Wednesday rolls around, it's cold and it's snowy and it's windy, and I'm like, how are we supposed to host? How are we supposed to have an event outside for this? And then everything came together. That Thursday was just insane. You got Mizzou, you got inflatable Truman the Tiger with Mizzou to our right, to our left. You have Drake Bulldog fans. They got their band out there, their cheerleaders out there having a good time. And then inside the depot, you have Texas Tech rented out the entire place. Like it was absurd. And then you see it on Saturday. Mizzou gets eliminated, but more Drake fans came by, and we were debating what was busier, Saturday or Thursday. And because Friday was definitely the worst of the three, but it wasn't a bad day. There were
Right.
still a lot of people that came on through. So I think by our estimation, we're probably thinking like 15,000 people or so probably walked through there, maybe 10,000. I don't know. I'm terrible when it comes to envisioning numbers and how many people are in a room. I'm horrible at that stuff, but God, it was so awesome. And then we, did some different things ourselves where Shane and I were out there. Shane Dennis, who's on from 12 to 2, who's much more legendary than me, being a two-time Hall of Famer. Rather than a sportscaster of the year, he's got me owned in every category. So that guy was drafted by the Padres and was part of the minor leagues, went over to Japan. He's way more kick-ass than I am. But Shane and I were able to do some unique things. We said, hey, we have a basketball jersey. If you download the new ESPN Wichita app and come show me, you get a jersey. We ran out like that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. So much effort put into that, but teamwork and having everyone on the same page and everyone coming together for a common goal to make Wichita the most kick butt place for an NCAA tournament. That's what it's all about, was to make sure that Wichita had a great showing, and they definitely did, and we had a great time. And of course, a lot of people were asking, well, what's next? I'm like, well, I don't think the NCAA tournament's coming anytime soon, so we got a little ways to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was kick butt. It was great. We appreciate all of our partners to make that a reality, because it's not just us. Those partners have to hop on board, and boy, did they deliver. Can't thank the depot, the kitchen, the Oxygen management enough for all that. Buena Vida Tequila, Greatness Vodka. There's so many people there. It was absurd. Bud Light. There was so many different partners out there, and that's what it's all about. It's coming together with a common goal in mind,
Yeah.
and we all came together and we threw a hell of a party. And when it was all said and done, we had a little hangover. Not because we drank a lot, but just because, like, holy crap, we had a crazy 4 day stretch of moving stuff and doing all that stuff. So we're just so fortunate that so many people came to that area and had a hell of a time. So we're very thankful for our listeners and people that made time out of their weekend to come out and see us.
So KU lost to Arkansas. We won't really talk about that that much. But
Yeah, we don't need to because KU choked it away like they've done all year long in the last 4 minutes.
they did, and there was turnovers, and there was a bad set for Hunter Dickinson. I still don't agree with it. I mean, you got May, who's been drilling threes all game long, and you basically just negate him from the play. He's standing on the corner, just
Mm-hmm.
doing absolutely nothing. But yeah, we won't talk about that. Okay,
No, we don't need
but
to. We
but
happy memories, Ryan. Happy memories.
yeah,
Happy memories.
happy thoughts, happy thoughts. So I want to talk about the NIL and the transfer portal. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you got KU who has what five players in the transfer portal now. You got Wichita State who barely has a team at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to 2023, the Final Four didn't have a single number one seed in it. It had San Diego State. UConn was a 4 seed. Florida Atlantic. You had this was madness. And now you have Drake, who I would have never really called them a Cinderella because they pretty well established themselves as one of the best mid majors, in the land,
Mm-hmm.
and they couldn't even make it very far into the tournament. And then you have Texas Tech. They end up going down. And then, Alabama, they just Mark Sears has like 34 points and 10 3-pointers in the game prior to playing Duke, and then throws up 6 points against Duke.
Mm-hmm.
And now, for the first time since I think it was 2008, the
Mm-hmm.
last time it happened was, I believe KU was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they basically have, all one seeds. And so my question for you is, it's a pretty loaded question. I just don't think that there's going to be much madness in March Madness anymore. When you have all these teams like Auburn, the AARP team, when you have teams like Florida, North Carolina, doesn't matter, but Duke, all of these teams throwing money at these players that come from the mid majors or just come from a team like Texas who didn't get a lot of playing time and just throw money. I mean, you can even talk about K State. They threw money at Hawkins,
Mm-hmm.
2 million for this season. It
Mm-hmm.
obviously didn't turn out the way K State planned it to, but you have all these teams throwing money, and there's a lot of money that can be thrown around if you're Florida, if you're Duke, if you're these top tier programs. Do you think the NIL and the transfer portal is killing college basketball?
Well, I think it's complicated for sure. From an NCAA tournament standpoint, I think that would explain why you do have all one seats
Yeah.
because I do think that the cream of the crop is there. But look, it's not entirely because of NIL. It's not entirely because of it. It's to me, I just think that this year, for the first time in a while, you had four teams that I felt like were clear cut the top four teams. I think you can sit here and make an argument all you want about, well, this team should have, this team's really good. Like, look, Tech's a really good team. Is Tech? I know they blew it. I get it, and that's why everyone liked their chances to get to a Final Four because they had the talent that was there. Do you think Tech's got really good NIL right now? From what I've been told, after talking to some Texas Tech fans, especially one in particular who was giving me some real insight because I was asking like, "Hey, is Patrick Mahomes going to be showing up?" And he said, "No, it ain't gonna happen, bro." And he's really well connected, so he told me about it. So that part was kind of cool. But he basically was like, you know where all the NIL's going, right? It's football. It ain't basketball. It ain't hoops. It's all football. And I'm like, all right, well, if he's telling me that, like he's got some insight, and I know he does because he backed it up when I looked at his background. I was like, he backed it up. So I don't think it's all NIL. I don't think it's all NIL when it comes to getting to the top four seats. Now, does it hurt Cinderellas in the future? Yes. That's very much a yes. I don't think you're going to have very much madness in March going forward. I truly do believe that. Um, and that's and it all depends on what your definition of madness is.
Yeah,
If Michigan, a 5 seed, ends up making to the Final Four, is that really madness? Probably not to
not
some.
really.
Is it madness if would it be madness if a 10 seeded Arkansas team makes it to the Final Four led by John Calipari? Probably not. I think it just depends on what your definition of madness is. If you're expecting VCU or San Diego State or a Loyola Chicago, like, yeah, you're probably not going to get those teams to go deep anymore. I don't think you're going to get it. So I think the madness of March is definitely going to be altered moving forward. Now, NIL, is it really killing college basketball? Listen, it's not just college basketball, it's college athletics across the board.
Yeah,
But who created the problem? Yeah, it was the NCAA when you had some people who went to the respective state governments and they said, "Hey, I want to make money off my name, image, and likeness," and the state government then said, "Hey, we're going to grant this and win them and give them an opportunity to do that." NCAA sees all these other lawsuits pile up and they go, "Well, all right, you want to pay players? Boom, do it." No ramifications, no parameters. I was just making this point the other day on Monday because look, with KU, and I'm not saying this because I'm a KU fan, because I think there are other programs that are being impacted, like a Kansas in some ways. But it wasn't that long ago when we saw people say, "I'm going to test the NBA draft waters and get some feedback and come back and get better and go to another school." Well, now that's erased. Now what we have is, hey, I'm going to enter the portal because I want to see the official offers I can get, and
yeah,
I'm going to test it to see what kind of deals I can get. Like with Flory Benuga, I don't think anyone expected him to be in the transfer portal right now for KU. Honestly, I don't think anyone saw it coming.
mm-mm.
But look,
Yeah.
the guy's got an agent. You don't you telling me that Flory and his agent aren't like talking? I bet you Flory's like, man, I don't know, and his agent's like, no, you should definitely do it because at the end, who gets a cut? The
Is
agent's going to want a big cut, right?
yeah,
And that's the issue is they went ahead and just said, hey, go ahead, have at it, start paying players, start talking to agents, start doing this. Well, now that you're able to do it, well, hell, everyone's going to hire an agent. I think today, Taylor Eldridge from Wichita Eagles said that someone hired an agent earlier today, and when I heard that, I'm like, that tells me they're probably getting ready to transfer
yeah,
because, like, those agents are the ones wheeling and dealing behind the scenes, and it's just out of control, is what it is. It's just out of control. And listen, I have always been one of those guys that said, look, it's like a job, man. It's like a job. You want to go out there and make more money? Like that's what coaches do. That's what we do. Like
yeah,
you need to go pay bills and make money. Who am I to say that you can't go out there and go make money? Like go do it. Go make money because you're not going to be a pro probably. You're going to be a really good college basketball player. Make as much money as you can right now because in the future you're probably not going to get the opportunity to do it. But the problem is there need to be some parameters. And the parameter needs to be, hey, if I'm going to give you a 3-year contract or if I'm going to give you a 3-year investment with an option of the fourth, there's going to be a buyout clause in it. Like Jay Billis said it the other day, and I couldn't agree more. And that is you give them a contract, you sign it, and maybe there are some contracts. I don't know. I haven't seen an official contract. I don't know how any of that works. All I know is that it is running amok. It's out of control. But listen, this is the problem that the NCAA inherited, and their cash cow is the NCAA tournament now. That's their cash cow.
yeah,
And if that product starts to slip and start to hurt, and the TV ratings start to drop, then they're going to all of a sudden go, you know what, guys, we need to fix this real quick because we're hurting for the bottom line. But listen, man, like the pendulum was already right here because NCAA benefited off of athletes so much. Now it's swung back this way, and I don't think we've hit the other side yet, which is scary because I don't know what that could mean in the future. But there definitely needs to be some parameters. Is there a limitation on on how many times you can transfer? I still think that might be a little extreme, but if you start laying out contracts and treating people as such, I bet you, I bet you it'll change a little bit. I bet you'll have some people that'll second guess if they want to hop in the transfer portal.
Yeah, one thing you can say about the NCAA is they will not fix something unless it's broke. And until
Mhm.
then, until there's an outcry for contracts or limitations to how many times you can transfer or anything along those lines, they're not going to fix it because they particularly don't care about the players. They don't care about the coaching staffs. They care about the money in their pockets. That's it.
Mhm.
But moving on, being in Kansas, the big team here for the NFL is the Chiefs. Even though many fans say they aren't local because they're in Missouri, well, guess what? That might change soon. We're not going to talk about that. But we are going to talk about the Chiefs for a little bit. Drafting later in the rounds, like the Chiefs have been doing for the past few years, it's just difficult to find the prospects that they need, especially when your biggest weakness, as we saw in the Super Bowl, was your offensive line. So you have to dip a bit more in free agency because it's going to be difficult to find a Trent Williams at pick 31. More importantly, left tackle has been lacking. The signing of San Francisco 49ers tackle Jalen Moore, the Chiefs are hoping to shore that up, but the Chiefs have been lacking at that left tackle position for quite some time now, and this is a chance for the Chiefs to flip that narrative. What did you think of the Jalen Moore signing?
Well, I think I think with what they did, and after seeing how the rest of free agency has gone, I would say that Kansas City did the best they could, honestly. And I know that sucks because there's so many people that wanted to change immediately. But I hate to break it to people. Brett Veach had to make a decision on his offensive line this year. He looked at it and he said, "Listen, I got Joe Tooney at left guard, who is aging, which pains me to say because I think him and I are pretty much the same age. So like that breaks my heart, but he's aging. You have Trey Smith at right guard, who is going to get a boatload of money.
Oh yeah,
You have Creed Humphrey, who's already on the books. At right tackle, you have Jawan Taylor, who is probably going to be a cap casualty after this season because I don't think he's going to get his fourth year, unless Kansas City says, you know what, we'll restructure his deal and that way he can free up some money on the other side. That gaping hole at left tackle. There's so many people that want to see big money thrown at left tackle, but you look at the guys who are out there. Do you really think Cam Robinson throwing a 4-year contract is really going to be the best answer? I would argue no.
no,
You see what the Texans recently did. Trying to blank on his name for the life of me. But he ended up signing a 1-year deal for $14 million. Did you really want Kansas City to do that? You had Ronnie Stanley, who got paid a boatload by Baltimore.
oh
Was
yeah,
was that was that really the right move?
no,
I I don't think so. So then you look at what they did. They looked at a guy who didn't get as many reps there in San Francisco, and they said, you know what? Let's bring him in and see what we can do. And when I look at all the other options that are at left tackle, I don't mind the fact that they're doing that because you're not going to find the left tackle for Patrick Mahomes. And look, they haven't been able to do that since what? I mean, heck, even Eric Fisher back in 2013, number one overall pick. They ended up landing him, and they're Chiefs fans that were pissed off that they got Eric Fisher. Hate to break it to you, but the draft sucked that year, and they had to take someone. And that
yeah,
time, it was Eric Fisher who ended up going to a Super Bowl. And then, of course, he has an injury. Then the rest is history when it comes to that in the game against Tampa Bay. So they haven't been able to find a left tackle for the future. And we've been thinking that Brett Veach has been making these moves, bringing in Jawan Taylor. Maybe he's going to go to the left tackle. That doesn't happen. Orlando Brown, you make a trade with Baltimore, bring him this side. All right, we like it for 2 years, but I don't think he's going to be the answer. Let's go ahead and let him walk. So that's what they did. They ended up just saying, hey, all right, see you, Orlando Brown. It's no big deal. We'll just move on from that point forward.
Yeah.
They tried the rookie route. They tried to say, hey, Kingsley Suamatia, I know you're actually a guard, but we'll try you at left tackle. Disaster. All right, Wanya
Yeah.
Morris, you're up. Disaster. Who else we got? Hey, DJ Humphreys, a guy who has had injury issues. Hey, you come out this way and try it. And within the first game, he has like a hamstring strain right off the bat. Like, oh, this is working out beautifully. Let's take a left guard and put him the left tackle. Boy, that didn't work out well. Well, what's the answer? The answer isn't to go out there and shell out a boatload of cash for a left tackle that's only going to be around for 3 years and a left tackle that's aging. Brett Veach has not shown that. He has shown that he's willing to pay guys who are 25, 26 years old. And if those guys are still young, we can bring them down. Everything's going to be fine. So that's what he's doing with Trey Smith. He takes a shot with more there at left tackle. If it pans out, that means a boatload of money for more, and that does well for the Chiefs. I think it's one of those moves that you make that you go, well, this is our best option, and I don't really want to take a big swing and a miss anywhere else. And then a lot of people looking at left tackle for the NFL draft. Well, I hate to break it to you, unless they get into the top 15, I doubt they're going to get a quality left tackle for the future. I was just talking about this just recently. You have Josh Simmons of Ohio State who suffered a torn ACL. If he's around at like pick 23, do the Chiefs trade up to try to get him? Well, they're going to run the risk of a guy who just recently tore his ACL. Do you really think he's going to be like Trey Smith? Teams will pass on him just because of the medical red flag? Like, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. So, what's the best answer for Kansas City? What do people expect? You can't go out there and pay everyone.
I
You
mean,
you have to make you have to pay the guys that you really want to pay, and then you have to have some casualties along the way.
I mean,
And Brett Veach looked at this team and said, you know what? Let's bring back Hollywood Brown on a cheap 1 year contract. Let's go ahead and bring in Kareem Hunt again for the running back spot. Let's look on defense and bring back some familiar faces. Let's bring back Nick Bolton, which I get it. He's not my most favorite player, but I understand he wears the green hat, so he's kind of the captain of the defense. You let Justin Reed walk. You shore up your number 2 cornerback spot with Christian Fulton. So you look at what they did, and I think the way that they've handled it is really the best way that they could, because everyone wants to see money be thrown at the big boys. Mahomes doesn't have a rookie contract. Travis Kelce retiring probably would have benefited Kansas City if that were the case. But he's not, and that's fine. It's okay if he's coming back for another year.
yeah,
But just know that that money is going to be on the books, going to go elsewhere. And that's why Kansas City for this upcoming draft, I know we want them to draft left tackle and everything, but they got to get younger in multiple positions.
yeah.
And I think
Defensive
they're
tackle being another position.
defensive tackle. God, right
Yeah.
now you have Mike Pinnell and Jerry Tillery as your options at defensive tackle to go with Chris Jones. So you know they're going to be working on some different dudes. But they bring back Charles Omenihu on a cheap prove it deal, which I think there are worse options at that spot.
Yeah.
So I think they've handled things the way that a Super Bowl championship caliber team is supposed to handle them. Even the Eagles suffered a few casualties. They didn't retain everyone. They had a few people go elsewhere too. So you look at the 49ers and now all of a sudden they're depleted. So I think the way that they handle it with Moore, is he the left tackle of the future? Time will tell. Odds are probably not, but Kansas City is looking at it from a pure financial standpoint, and their financial senses are telling them, let's
Yeah.
bring in a guy who didn't get a lot of reps. Let's try him out. And if we're in the same situation like we were last year, then, well, our fans can complain, but this is the way we got to handle it for right now.
Yeah. So over the weekend, unless you were living under a rock, that you probably noticed there were torpedo bats that were unveiled by the New York Yankees. They
So
just raked the ball nonstop. I I lost track of the home run, how many home runs they belted, but a lot of it had to do with their ballpark. I saw a graphic over the weekend where most of these home runs that they were hitting, they would only hit inside their park and not a single other park in the MLB. But it's kind of like the Brewers manager said, it's not the wand, it's a magician. Probably one of the more odd ways to explain this, but he does have a point. Um, what is your opinion on the torpedo bites, torpedo
Well,
bats?
yeah, well, I mean, torpedo bite sounds wonderful. You might have
Yeah,
just
this
stumbled
sound
across
great.
like a new form of a pizza roll or something.
It's like a
Uh,
jalapeno and a pickle or something.
yeah. Hey, all right. I'm sold. I'll invest. It sounds great. Yeah. I mean, listen, and the Brewers, it's funny, like hearing that, and then the Royals scored 10 against them, and there were no
Exactly.
torpedo bats. So I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think it's the bats. It's more so the fact that it is Yankee Stadium, and look, they're about to have these bats unveiled all over the place. You have
Yeah.
De La Cruz go off for 7 RBI for the Reds in his first game using a torpedo bat. So look, if it's legal, if it's in the books, then by all means, it's like what I talked about today with the tush push. I'm like, why are the Green Bay Packers complaining about this? You can be Jordan Love and go under center and have someone push someone. It's not difficult. Like they just because the Eagles do it doesn't mean it's an exclusive thing that the Eagles do. You can run it.
We
If you
saw
want to
the
be like the
Packers
Eagles,
run it.
run it. Yeah, if you want to run it. It's fine. Like go right ahead. Now Mahomes and the Chiefs will never do it because they're afraid of him doing a quarterback sneak. But if you are a team and it's legal, why aren't you doing it? Freaking
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Makes it nice and easy. And then that will force the hand of the NFL to go, okay, this is getting ridiculous. Everyone's doing it. We'll stop it. I think in some ways, well, we don't need to talk about Rob Manfred and how garbage of a commissioner he is for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
But look, it's in the rule book. It's there. It's fine. And in some ways, deep down inside, I bet he's loving it because I don't know too many people that enjoy pitcher duels anymore. Like
Yeah.
the 1916 ball game I talked about a long time ago with Wichita State and Oklahoma. You know
Yeah.
why I enjoyed it? Because I saw 9 home runs. That's why I enjoyed it. I saw 9 homers,
Yeah.
and that was cool. I like seeing 9 home runs. I like seeing the ball go a long, long way. I love seeing that type of stuff. So, in some ways, I think Rob Manfred's probably like, you know what? Let's keep it legal because I don't mind seeing my players go off, and I want to see all these home runs take place. So, look, it's just one of those things to where if it's in the rule books, it's in the rule books. Like, don't. To me, if this was a Chicago White Sox, right, and the Chicago White Sox did it,
Yeah.
do you think we care?
And the
Probably not.
Miami Marlins. Yeah.
You know what? You know why we don't care about it? Because it's the White Sox. They're crap. It's
Yeah.
the Marlins. They're crap. It's the big bad evil empire, the New York Yankees. They're the ones using it, and that's why all of a sudden people care because it's the Yankees. And the
I mean,
Yankees. That's all they do. They
if
cheat.
if
They're
if
the
the
Yankees.
Dodgers did it, it'd be the same thing because they're
Same
the
thing.
mean, mad Dodgers now.
Same thing. Same thing. So that's why I think it's so comical. And guess what? Like, all right, they're using them, and now you see players going, "Hi, can I get one of those torpedo bats, please? I would love to
Hmm.
use it."
Yeah. But speaking of the Royals, you brought them up. They completed their first series over the weekend, and they did get a win on Saturday, 4-3. But they ended up losing the next game 6-2 and losing the series to the Guardians. Still weird saying that team name. In the first couple of games, the starting pitching is what stood out to me. Seth Lugo, he really did not look like he had his stuff going, but the Royals overcame that and grinded out a win. Michael Wacha, they threw 87 pitches through 4 innings and gave up 1 run and 4 hits. The crazy thing to me is though through the first 3 games of this season, the Royals starting pitchers didn't make it past the 5th inning. But let's fast forward to last night. The
Mm-hmm.
surprise was Chris Bubich. He ended up going 6 innings, surrendered 3 hits, had 8 Ks and 2 walks. So, what's your take on how the first series went? After last night, the Royals are back to 500 after drubbing the Brewers 11-1. Did the Royals use the torpedo bats against the Brewers? That's my question.
The answer is no. The answer is a big fat no on that. It's the Royals, man. Now, do they need some help with it? Probably. Give it to Hunter Renfro. Give it to anyone you can find. Hunter Renfro especially. Um, Look, I know everyone likes to overreact after one series. It's
Yeah.
one series. It's You have 4 games out of 162 there in the books, and I think it's amazing. If you were to rank, you have postseason game. Doesn't matter what it is, what level it is. Like there's a lot of pressure for a postseason game. But then you go below it and you go, well, what's a game that's close to a postseason game that like fans overreact about and like complain about? It's opening day. If you lose opening day, people are pissed.
Yeah.
And it's one game, guys. One game. That's all it is. It's one game. So it was surprising to see the starting pitching not be as reliable as the Royals were used to last year. That's the fear for this year because last year was so great and it was such a big surprise to see the starting pitching being as good as it was. Can they repeat it? Can Seth Lugo repeat it? I don't think anyone's questioning Cole Reagans and if he can be a part of the American League Cy Young conversation. I don't think anyone's questioning that.
Yeah.
You can question Seth Lugo because he logged the most amount of innings that he's ever done. And that's concerning for a guy who's not a spring chicken anymore.
Hmm.
Michael Waka, as good as he was, can he be reliable? Well, keep in mind Michael Waka also started slow last year. He's a notoriously slow starter at the beginning of the year. So don't freak out when it comes to that because he notoriously does it, just the way it is. But of course, you look at like Chris Bubich and you go, well, can what can Chris Bubich bring to the table? Well,
Right.
he makes his first start since 2023 and looked like an all star on the mound. He was in relief last year as a pitcher, but they didn't try to rush him back, and I thought that was big. Everyone thought Chris Bubich could be a secret weapon, but now you have the back end of the bullpen pretty much all locked up with Lucas Ursig. You have Carlos Estevez or Estevez. Keep hearing like 5,000 ways to pronounce his name. Um, Angel Zerpa, although the other day he didn't do so hot, but Zerpa is one that I think that can be solid this year for the back end of the bullpen. So, and then you have Hunter Harvey, who can be a solid player as well. So when you look at the Royals, the question a lot of people have is about the offense. But pitching wise, it was a little bit of a stunner. But it is again one series. It's early. It's not like it was super warm in Kansas City. It was a little chilly that weekend.
Yeah.
Not using weather as an excuse, but it is something that you have to think about when you are a pitching member. So the offense, though, Jonathan India finally got it going yesterday, which is great. Michael Garcia's got this freaking power at the beginning of the year that no one really expected. And then you have Bobby Witt Jr. being Bobby Witt Jr. So, look, it's 4 games into a season. I think at the end of May is when you truly start to make decisions on what kind of team you have.
Yeah.
At the end of April, you get a little taste, but even then, I still don't think it's enough of a sample size. NMA will tell you a lot. NMA will be like, is this team in contention? If
Yeah.
they are, then better look for them to make kind of a big move come trade deadline. If they're not in contention, well, they might make another move to try to get into contention, or maybe they trade away some pieces to try to load up for 2026.
Yeah.
But one series in, I don't think you want to take too much stock into it. I think the pitching is going to correct itself at some point. So I wouldn't freak out over 4 games.
In other words, Royals fans who think there's an apocalypse about to happen or that the sky is falling, scale back a little, pump the
Mm,
brakes a bit. We're 4 games into a 162 game season. Actually, there's a game going on right now, so maybe 5. Not to mention, you start the seasons with the Guardians, who are a dark horse in the division, in my opinion. You have the Twins, who, if they stay healthy, they could have a good run. Scooble for the Tigers has everybody talking. and the Guardians are barely even being talked about. But we shall see how this season unfolds. We will be keeping you up to date on everything Royals on this podcast. But I wanted to go ahead and thank Pat Strathman from 92.3 ESPN Wichita for joining me on this special episode. It was truly my pleasure.
Appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, let me know if you ever want to do it again. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. And on that note, we will send you out and hope that everybody has a great week. Peace out.